AI is revolutionizing finance, but not everything labeled AI is actually useful.
With so much hype, finance leaders risk wasting time, money, and credibility on AI solutions that overpromise and underdeliver.
So how do you separate game-changing innovation from empty buzzwords? Nicolas Boucher has trained thousands of finance leaders on AI and has seen firsthand what works and what doesn't.
In this episode, we're cutting through the noise to debunk common AI myths, expose the biggest mistakes finance teams make, and lay out a clear roadmap for CFOs to become AI champions in their organization.
Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Growth Minded CFO. I'm here with Lauren, my great co-host, and I'm Alex.
And today we have a wonderful guest on the show. We're speaking with Nicolas Boucher, who is an expert in finance and AI. So Nicolas, welcome to the show. It's really exciting to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. And nice to see you again because we met already virtually.
Yes.
And I didn't know that your co-host will be a French, so it's good to be in majority for once. And so a lot of the people listening I hope they love the French accent, because if not, it will be too hard for them.
It's going to be a lot of French accent today.
They have to, and that's fine.
I think it's great. So Nicolas, just to get started, could you tell us just a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so right now what I do is I teach finance professional how to use AI. I have either through my community on LinkedIn, I have more than 1 million people following me, which is quite crazy to think about that. Or I also give courses to companies, or I also have a community called the AI Finance Club, which is for CFOs and fractional CFOs who want to become AI CFOs. And we have live events, we have guides, we have daily chatters, we have exchanges with other experts. So not only me, but also other experts about how to use AI in finance.
Very cool. And I'm so curious because this is such an interesting area of expertise. It's so current. How did you get into this? Like, what were kind of the experiences in your career that led up to you being the person that folks seek out for AI and finance?
So I'm a finance guy first. I don't come from the AI world. I come from finance, from really, I think most of the listeners today. I started my career at PwC, worked in Luxembourg and Singapore as a financial auditor.
Okay.
And then after I moved on to the corporate side, worked for Thales. Thales is a French group working on aerospace, defense, and communications.
Cool.
A bit like Boeing for the Americans who don't know Thales, but European and a bit smaller, but still quite big. And what I loved in all of my career is the combination of using technology to work faster, to go home earlier than my peers, or to impress my boss, but also teaching, like coaching my team, sharing this knowledge. And at one point, I felt that I wanted actually to use the technology to teach to more people, to have more impact. And that's when I turned to LinkedIn. And then a second event appeared, was on November 2022 when ChatGPT arrived. Got me really excited. I think I was one of the first to get the license, especially in finance. And at the beginning, all of the web was talking about how to use it to write a rap song or a poem to your wife, or business people more about how to use it for copywriting or marketing materials.
Yeah.
But nobody was looking into the corporate finance world. And that's where I really spent a lot of time to think about all of the use cases. And really quickly, I wrote a guide on how to use ChatGPT for finance. And this guide got viewed and downloaded and bought by more than 5,000 people.
Wow. Very cool. So you knew you had something.
And is this now like a full-time job, or are you still in your previous function? Okay, so that's an interesting leap of faith into moving from a traditional kind of like finance world in a traditional company to a whole new world for you, I guess.
Yeah, so I did in parallel of my job for like 6 months, 1 year, and also having young kids. So it was like a lot in
Yeah. Wow.
2022, 2023 for me. But I really did that 100% as from 1st of July 2023. So now more than 1.5 year. And there is also this wave of, like solopreneur, creators, influencers. So for me, I'm kind of using all of the waves at the same time. The creator, solopreneur, influencer, plus AI. And another wave that is coming now, and I think Lauren knows that, is all of the B2B influencing, where a lot of brands want our help to educate the finance professionals. And I'm working also with brands on this. And I have to say is for me, I am using all of the skills I had already before, but now that I'm allowed to use them, because of course I was a finance guy like in Excel and doing presentations and reviewing invoices, but I love to teach. I love to also like the marketing aspect. I loved also the client contact. And in finance, sometimes you are kind of you are asked to do only one thing.
Yeah.
And now I'm happy to do more of everything that I love, which is not only finance, but also all of these meta skills, which I can also continue to grow.
Very
This is
cool.
really refreshing because we've discussed that with multiple guests on the pod recently, but people that actually made that move from one position to another,
Yep.
feeling their instinct and also feeling what they want to do, right? Rather than being stuck in this little box where someone put them at the beginning of their career and
Right.
they would gradually grow from one point to another.
Yeah.
And one of the key learnings that we had from other guests as well, and you're a good example of that, is that sometimes you need to follow your heart and what you want to do, right?
Yes.
And there's, I think, compared to maybe 50 years ago,
Yep.
more flexibility in being successful in this position. So thank you, Nicolas, for sharing this. I think it's very inspiring.
It's very inspiring, and it also kind of supports other things we've been hearing about the value of entrepreneurship to your education as a finance professional. We see a lot of movement back and forth from entrepreneur to CFO to for multiple guests, and many folks saying that it was actually essential for their understanding of how to run a business. Both the finance experience gives you these great skills as a founder, and being a founder really helps you understand running the business as a CFO. So very cool to see once again.
If you go back to the corporate world, Nicolas, I'm not sure you will go back, but
I don't know if you'll have a reason to, but
but maybe that would be very useful.
potentially. So Nicolas, just kind of getting to kind of the content of what you do, I wonder if, as you begun your exploration of the use of AI in finance, if certain areas stuck out kind of as like those first aha moments of you found that AI could solve a use case that felt really useful. Like, what were kind of those first moments where you said, oh, this is a really powerful tech for what I've done previously, doing it faster, better?
So there was really, I would say, 3 moments, and chronologically. The first is just how much you can write and brainstorm. So that was just at the beginning, where, I mean, you just ask, oh, can you write for me a reminder letter to send to this client? Can you even like act as a lawyer? Because I don't know like what I could put in the letter to put pressure, but please do it. And it just like writes for you something like first faster than you, second in a better English, and third using legal actions that you will never thought about. And that solves a real problem, because I know many times where my accountants, they just say, oh, they don't want to pay. So now it's not my problem. Can you ask the CEO to call, or can you call yourself? And I was like, yeah, but try harder. And now with ChatGPT, they could try with a harder email, which kind of make your client sweat. So that was the first step, was writing.
Interesting.
But then, like people at the beginning was impressive. Like I remember when I was showing that in my courses, people were, wow, it writes so fast. It's so good. You show that now, people are like, yeah, we know that.
Right.
So it was really something.
Yeah.
And the second part, I remember I was in this room, was when ChatGPT had the code developer. So code developer is basically having a calculator and a Python machine inside ChatGPT.
Yep.
And before, you could not really calculate with ChatGPT because just the calculation were wrong.
Yep.
And for people listening, these LLMs, they are probabilistic. So they love to give you the most probable answer, but as finance, we want an accurate answer.
Right.
So it's not good to calculate. But then I think it was in August 2023, I remember I was in this room and I saw this code developer just arrive. I uploaded a file inside and said, just analyze this. And it created a heat map where first, you cannot do that in Excel because the heat map is only feasible in Python. And it did it super perfectly, and also like started commenting and did the analysis.
Oh, cool.
I remember like storming out of my room, going to my wife and say, now this is really going to change
Yeah.
a lot of jobs because we move from writing to calculating.
Yeah.
And the third is now actually moving a bit out of the chatbots and going more in your process where you have a workflow. And I have an example with an agent that I created where you put inside, for example, your expense statements or credit card statements.
Yep.
And you send that with a prompt into OpenAI through an API. And you ask, can you classify that for me? Like an accountant will spend maybe 1-2 hours per week classifying all of the expense statements.
Yeah.
And it will do like this job at 80, 90, 95% really well. And that's like a real process that can go inside your work and where you really save time. It's not just writing an email. And so those are like the three phases where I have experienced that, and I have taught that. And every 6 months, there is something new coming, and I'm very excited by all of these developments.
That's so cool.
That's a great segue into the kind of discussion that we all have in this environment around the hype versus the reality.
Yeah.
The example that you just gave are real examples of real use cases. But everyone is kind of curious, especially for us who build software in this environment, of what is the hype. You know, for me, and we were chatting about this and talking about this with Lauren earlier. There was, at this point in time, the moment we were discussing when this appeared, a lot of companies became AI companies overnight, right?
Right.
All of the websites were just like, yeah, it's AI powered.
Yep.
And then you put the name of your previous company or what it used to do. And then when you were actually opening the box of what's really AI in this product, it was actually basically doing Gen AI for writing an email. And that was pretty much it, you know, and it was a lot of marketing stuff on the website, but not a lot in reality. Although I think that today this is really changing a lot the way we build the product, the way we're going to. So I was curious to hear your take, Nicolas, on in the current state. So we're recording this episode in March of 2025, and I'm stating it because I guess anyone listening to this in 6 months time might have a very different answer.
Totally different, right?
What is your view on hype versus reality of those tools for the finance teams?
So I think hype is also on the expectation people have because we are promised that is an intelligent machine. We think it can replace one of the most complex problems that we have,
Right.
instead of the simple ones. And so we start first by attacking the most complex one, which is analyzing financial statements. And I mean, today, if you give a financial statement to an intern who doesn't know anything about the company, like besides just calculating variances in percentages and maybe like saying your general expenses just grew faster than your sales, so you might want to control your general expenses, you cannot do more, and AI cannot do more than that as well.
Right.
And that's where it's really hard to explain to people because they believe, if you just show the financial statements to an AI, it will just do all of the financial analysis, the commentaries, the graphs, the reports. And so there is education needed for that.
Yeah.
So that's the first. The second, in terms of hype, is also the fact that people think that there will be one AI tool that will be there to cover all of the finance processes. And they are looking for this one. What is the best AI tools for finance? And what only works now is a tool that does only one process, but the process really well. And because, if you look at revenue recognition, I like to take this example because you have both calculation but interpretation. You have a tool called Trullion, Trulion, and they are specialized in that for both US GAAP and IFRS, where if you upload a contract, it will recognize inside what are the revenue recognition criteria and the 5 steps, and will draft all of this for you and even propose a booking. And that's like a real use case. But not everybody has this problem because most of the companies don't have revenue recognition problem. So it will only fit one type of company. And then another company will need maybe to use an AI tool to recover all of the overdues and invoice not paid. And there what you can bring is first GenAI to customize the emails you send, or maybe GenAI, not even GenAI, more machine learning to identify the bad payers. So to maybe anticipate this reminder process before it's too late. And then what you can add is a voice agent, which will call the client and say, hey, I'm the voice agent of the growth-minded CFO podcast. You didn't pay the bill. So do you want me to send the email with all of the details? And this is a great use case where you can also save time and get money back. But the same tool that does the revenue recognition process is not the same tool that does the overdue recovery.
Yep.
And that's something to also to understand is it's more like a case by case and less this big black box where all of the finance process will be done in once for all.
And one thing that I think is really interesting in the way we personally thought and approached that at Upflow from a using AI perspective is also realizing that, and I think you said it really, really well here on, you still need to really understand deeply the underlying process that you're trying to solve, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's RevRec, whether it's cash collection, whether it's account payable, AI is only going to augment your capability in doing this. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be this kind of magic black box that is going to solve every single problem, which I think is a great takeaway for everyone here. The other key takeaway that I got, and we got the exact same, is focusing on simplicity rather than complexity.
Yeah.
And one thing that I like a lot, and so, sorry, I'm totally biased with Upflow because we work on cash collection, but It's something that I say a lot is that 70% of the actions that are sent through our tool, right? So the reminding actions when people are actually changing unpaid invoices and trying to collect them are technical issues, right? So it's very basic. Everyone think about the bad payer, the difficulties in, no one wants to pay stuff. But the reality is that oftentimes it's just the invoice has been sent to the wrong contact. Right. You need to update this. You need to get a PO number. You name it, right? And these are very simple use cases that take a lot of time to finance teams to actually handle. We help them accelerate that, but that's a good use case for the first basic agents that are what we call focus agents. Not because it's not like a universal intelligence, but just something that does one thing really well. And I think this is a great takeaway from for finance teams on how to apply it and focusing on one focused, simple task to do.
Still to come on this episode.
A robot is like a human to manage. You need first to recruit. So you need to find this robot or to train if it's more a mini script. Then after you need to instruct this robot. So you need like a really good instructions like humans. If you give a good instruction and coach well, then you get good output.
The hypergrowth era is over. This is the age of profitable, sustainable growth. Remember a few years back when securing investments seemed so easy? Today, not so much. Interest rates are up, valuations are down. Money is scarce and it doesn't come cheap. You need to stand on your own 2 feet. A grow at all costs mindset simply isn't viable in the current market. Today's top priority for businesses is to optimize the customer experience to maximize lifetime value and retention. Marketing, sales, and success have seen decades of investment in the art of optimizing the customer experience. It's time for finance to catch up, to push for the same level of sophistication as the other disciplines, to ensure the finance touchpoints become positive elements of the customer experience. It's time for financial relationship management. This is your CRM for customer engagement through the finance process. Finance have long been under pressure to collect invoices, but not able to focus on the customers those invoices represent. With FRM by Upflow, you can bring the B2C customer experience to your B2B finance process. We've taken a completely new, customer-centric approach that'll set your business free. In fact, we are so confident that we underwrite the value of FRM difference through our unique money-back guarantee. If Upflow doesn't deliver at least double its cost in savings, you get all your money back, no questions asked. Faster payments, better customer relationships, and fully realized growth potential. It's time your finance function embraced the change.
Enjoying today's episode? Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app and tell a friend about the show. Now back to the episode.
I love this discussion because I feel like we've had a lot of opportunities on the podcast to talk about kind of the approach of where to go first, which I think is one of those questions that's causing a lot of CFOs a lot of anxiety. Is AI is so big, there's so many options, like what are my next steps? Like what can I do now? And we're hearing here, I think, another sort of thing to add to the list, which is going to the things that have that element of simplicity, that have that element of this isn't a complicated problem already for a human that would be tough for a human without, a ton of education to figure out. Let's go through something that's maybe a little more straightforward in nature. And I remember the other things we've spoke with other folks about that they're focusing on are things like, the same problems that you had before AI are the problems you have now. Like focus on problems you actually have rather than, opportunities that are kind of outside that priority set, and focusing on data. I'm curious, Nicolas, in your work, have you bumped into barriers around data at companies as limiting their ability to use AI? How is data impacting the work that you're doing?
So I think there are two things. First, if you can upload data inside these AI tools, is a discussion that I always hear and where a lot of people stop. They just think, if I cannot use it with my data, then I cannot use it. And there are two solutions. One, if you cannot do that, you can still use it for so many use cases. You don't need to explain exactly your data to get help on financial analysis. An example, imagine, Lauren, I have a problem with my Excel file.
Right.
I want maybe to do really simple, like I have overdues because we're talking about overdues, and I want to arrange them by age bucket. Like something I know my team before I had trouble doing if they are not good with Excel.
Sure.
I don't need to tell you exactly like which company is inside with how long they didn't pay. I just need to tell you, look, Lauren, I have a column with company name, I have invoice date, I have due date, I have the amount. So how can I use in Excel formulas to create age bucket? And if you are the Excel expert, you are going to explain me, just first calculate how long they are overdue. So like today, there is the formula in Excel today, minus the date of the invoice or the payment date, etc., etc. So, and then you will tell me, then you can do a pivot table or you can do groups. And the same ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude can do for you. If you explain how your data looks like, what you want to solve, it will give you the formula you need. And if you are precise enough by giving exactly the tab name, the position of the cell, it will even give you the exact formula that you can copy and paste.
Yeah.
So that's the first aspect. If you don't want to put your data inside and you don't really have access to a corporate license.
Yep.
Talking about corporate license, actually now more and more companies, and in the recent live webinars we did, we polled people on asking how many of you have a corporate license for a LLM chatbot. And do you know how many responded? What do you think in terms of percentages?
Corporate license.
I would say very, very low. I would expect that everyone is using like their own personal accounts and it's on the side. And, I would say 5%.
No, it was 60%.
60?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And we did the webinar 3 times. And on top, there was a lot of Europeans. So, and what is happening is
maybe the selection bias, Nicolas, of people attending your
because they want to learn how to leverage it better.
But
so you have more and more people having corporate license, and even people don't know they have corporate license. Best example is if you have a Microsoft Office license, most probably you can use Copilot because you got also a Copilot license with it and you don't know about it. And if you open the standard, the security standard on the page of Microsoft explaining what are the security standards around Copilot, it's written, those are the same than all of our others Microsoft 365 products. So like Office. If today you already send your professional data with Outlook that are in Excel and everything is in OneDrive, then why there are you not stressed, and why are you stressed using Copilot?
Interesting.
And that's something where it takes time and takes education, but if you have a corporate license and you use those tools, they are ChatGPT, for example, is under SOC 2, and for Europe, they also follow GDPR rules. Microsoft, they say it's the same standard. So if we educate and we understand that, then you can really get the fear away, and then people then start using it. And once they start using, then the appetite grows, the acceptance grows, and people will just like want more and more, and they will find use cases.
Yeah.
That's a great takeaway. I think a lot of people are kind of scared of not necessarily themselves, but also the organization, I think, at a level. That's why we're thinking that the level would be much lower.
Yes.
I think a lot of people are still a little bit frozen in terms of, can I do it? Is this dangerous and stuff? When it's quite likely that, as you said, it's not going to be the case for very long. Yeah,
you hear that from, I sit sometimes on panels with other CFOs of larger companies, and I think a lot of those finance leaders are very nervous to, if they have PII, if they have any, it could be internal data, also could be customer data, and they're all very, very reluctant to, see a lot of financial institutions at banks, larger tech companies less so because they have more sophistication around these things, but they can really resist. And it's also, it's interesting when the pressure kind of comes from within to be using these tools. And I imagine eventually there's a time where to gate these tools off puts you at such a disadvantage that folks have to find a way to implement it even if they're nervous. So it's very interesting how much it's permeated the market already.
Nicolas, maybe just one thing that I think was interesting in terms of what are the things that are the not to do when you think about AI for you as a finance team or as a finance professional? What are the kind of key mistakes that you've seen people doing? I mean, you've touched upon a couple of them, but is there specific things that you want to share here?
So first, if you use GenAI, I would say, because that's the one where most people use now, you should not do your analysis, I will say, just putting a data inside and then expect an answer. The process is that first, what you do is you ask, okay, here is my data, what can I do? And then together, you are going to discuss about what is the most appropriate analysis. And once you have seen what type of analysis is the most appropriate, then you ask, okay, now do this preliminary analysis, show it to me, so like this I can see if it makes sense to continue this route or not. And then once you have done it, then you should productize this, because this chatbot might go away. You don't know, there is a lot of errors where sometimes discussions are deleted. This chatbot is also not auditable by an auditor. And if you want to pass away your work to your colleague next to you, it's really hard to pass a chatbot. So make sure after you can productize this in your own environment, either Excel, Google Sheet, or even Python code. OpenAI is doing that. They are using a lot of Python for their finance processes. And the fact that you start with an AI, you're going to be much faster to go to your point and have found your analysis plus how to build it in Excel. And so don't just throw at AI a file and just ask for conclusions, because for a trainee, you will also not do that. You will want to see all of the working files. You want to have an audit trail.
Right.
You want to see all of what is happening because you want to control.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing. And also make sure when it calculates that it's a machine calculating, so a calculator, and not the LLM.
Yeah.
And you can see that if you have this small analyzing appearing, and then you can click on it and you see the Python code, then you can verify that it was calculated. If you don't see that and it's just an answer with text, then you have a risk that is wrongly calculated because LLMs don't know how to calculate. They will just give you a probable answer.
Yeah.
These are very important. And the third is actually not only for finance, it's for everybody. This looks so intelligent that you might want to take a shortcut. And if you take an answer that you don't understand, you give that to your boss, and your boss will see that there is something wrong, and you say, oh no, but it's not me, it's AI. Then your boss might say, okay, I don't need you anymore, I just work with AI then. And that's I see a lot of people taking this risk, and this is crazy because they over rely on this technology, and they should use it to get better themselves, but not take a risk to look bad in front of their boss.
Yeah, and I think it's going back to this point that we discussed multiple times that I think is super important on this is not replacing your job, this is just helping you doing your job better, but it's also retain your expertise and your understanding and your analysis of what is happening.
Yes.
And I really like your point on productizing it because it's actually, yes, instead of spending 2 hours trying to build this macro or this Python code or anything, it was done in 2 minutes by ChatGPT. But in the end, I have something that works autonomously that I can audit, that I can understand, that I can pass to other, as you rightly mentioned. And it's just the shortcut is only on building it, but not in how we audit it and how we use it. And I think that makes a whole difference. And that's really great.
I love the word that you've given us, productize, because I think that's like a very helpful word that describes that process. Yep. You need to not just have the output, you need almost kind of the machine that created the output so that you can do it again. I think that's a really great insight for using this tool effectively.
So many learnings already.
And as we wrap up our conversation today, I think as this Growth Minded CFO podcast, we have to ask about the role of the CFO in all of this, because we've spoken about a lot of wonderful, tangible examples about how the finance team can use AI to do their jobs better. But as a CFO, if you are hearing kind of about these exciting ideas that your team is implementing, is wanting to use AI, is kind of pushing these things forward, Nick, how do you feel that the CFO should respond and handle that? What should they do as a leader to kind of enable that progress in the finance function in the department?
So first, you need to make sure your team has a corporate license of a LLM chatbot.
Okay.
Because if you don't do that, then you cannot talk about AI if the easiest tool you don't even give to your team. So do that. And right now, the question I always get, which one is the best? All of those LLMs, they almost do the same output. They are at a few percentage better in one direction or another. The differentiator is actually in which environment you are. If your company is already using Microsoft products everywhere, when you use the license Copilot Business and you do a query, and for example, you want to create a project charter, and you had the meeting last week with the team working on the project, and this is a project that you also did 1 year ago. If you go in ChatGPT and you ask to create a project charter, you will have to explain a lot about the context to get an output. If you go in Copilot Business and you ask a really simple question, Copilot Business has access to your email and to your OneDrive.
Oh, wow.
And if you ask normally correctly, it will find the email of last week where you had all of the team inside and you might have the minutes, plus the project charter of last year. And it will combine all of this to make a project charter, which is 10 times more valuable than the one you will get from ChatGPT. And that is the differentiator. So choose the LLM which fits to your environment. either you're a Microsoft company or Google, or if you are none of them, then you have more freedom, but also less integration. So that's the first step. Then when you will do that, then your team will have more appetite and will have acceptance with AI. Then the second part, if you today still have your accounts payables not digitized and you have still people doing manually this would be the first process to automate with AI. Because before you had the OCR, which was there to read the invoice, but OCR doesn't understand the invoice. Now you have AI, generative AI LLMs, they have OCR on top, but they make sense of the fields of the invoice and they know where to book it. And that's a big change because you really don't need the human anymore in between. And those tools now, there are tons of these tools. They are quite cheap. So that's the second process to do. And then after, what I would recommend is to get the low-hanging fruits by getting AI to script all of this manual processing you do with all of your Excel work or Google Sheet to automate that. And automation doesn't mean you have to bring new tools. You work with what you already have today. And one example, imagine you work in Google Sheets and every week you have somebody in your team spending one afternoon deleting columns, deleting lines, filter, combining tabs. Well, now you make sure this person tries in Google Sheets something called Google App Script. And they don't need to know how to code. They just need to explain to a LLM chatbot like ChatGPT or Gemini what they do in this file. And saying, for example, I am deleting the last two columns. Then I am combining all of the tabs. Then I am filtering by just keeping the company B. And maybe don't try to have everything processed at one time, but try step by step to get the script to do that for you. And it's crazy how fast you will see that you can automate process that you thought the AI could do that for you. And now it's not really the AI doing it for you, it's the AI coding it for you in your own tool. And then when you have time after, you can focus on what I think is our future in finance, is doing more human tasks and less robotic tasks. But for this, CFOs, they are going to change. It's already the case for the one that I manage in the AI Finance Club, the AI CFOs. They are already orchestra where they have a team, but they have also their automations, their tools, their robots. And a robot is like a human to manage. You need first to recruit. So you need to find this robot or to train if it's more a mini script. Then after you need to instruct this robot. So you need like a really good instructions like humans. If you give a good instruction and coach well, then you get good output. And after you need to review, assess if they still do their job well, or if you should replace with other people, or to train them to get better.
I love that parallel of managing an LLM or an AI agent to hiring, right? The idea of you have to recruit the right bot. Like, oh, yeah, you really do. You have to pick the first one. You have to train it. You have to instruct it well. And I'm sure that's a whole new skill set that CFOs have to learn as they're using that to automate tasks on their team.
And it always comes back to this idea of the mindset. I think what you described earlier, Nicolas, is really interesting around the mindset you have approaching like a new thing, whether it's AI or something else, a new position. And I think it's a mindset of learning, of embracing the change. And I think it's very inspiring for all finance leaders out there. So thank you so much for that. Nicolas, we wanted to thank you so much for being with us today. This is the first time we have someone with 1 million followers on LinkedIn on the podcast. So we're very excited about this and seeing how this will be shared to the wider community. Thanks so much for being with us today. It's been very both practical and also like kind of like mindset oriented. So this is exactly what we're trying to achieve, I think, on this podcast.
That's right. Tangible with a growth mindset.
Here we go. This is the new tagline. Nicolas, thank you so much for being with us today. If you like this episode, please share it with other professionals. They will get some relevant and practical advices on how to use AI in the day-to-day. And if you can give us a a good rating or sharing it with others, that would be great.
And subscribe.
Nicolas, thank you so much. And we'll see you later. And we'll see you on another episode of The Growth Minded CFO. See you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Growth Minded CFO podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and consider telling a friend or colleague about the show. We'd really appreciate your help in spreading the word. The Growth Minded CFO is brought to you by Upflow. Upflow is a groundbreaking financial relationship management software. Think of it like a CRM for finance. Upflow enables businesses like yours to collect cash faster, build stronger customer relationships, and achieve efficient long-term growth. Join thousands of forward-thinking finance leaders and go from chasing invoices to engaging customers. Find out more at upflow.io.